So hi again, everyone. It's 12:03. There are actually still people streaming in, so we'll just put on hold for a while as we start the session at about 12:05. So just to really give you a bit of a background, in the room today, you have Joyce as well as Eugene, who is a part of my team to help with today's webinar session. Today's webinar session will be walking you some things like, for example, how to prepare, some quick tips, some do's and don'ts about certification, and if you got any of your own personal questions that you like to surface up to us, we'll be happy to take your questions in the chat function, and we'll be addressing some of them also during today's session. My name is Nicole, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Just give us a couple more minutes as we wait for some last few individuals before we start the session proper. Hi, everyone. Okay, I see the clock now. It's 12:05. So let's proceed. My name is Nicole, and I'll be hosting today's webinar session. Again, a very, very big thank you for joining us for today's session. So just to share with you, I hope you can see the next screen, which is the agenda. We'll be walking you through some of the discussion topics today, which is going to be around who are we, what is the IHRP certification. More importantly, what is it and why does it benefit you? We'll then spend the next 20 minutes into really about how to fill up the application process, which is around the online submission. Now, you might have some questions, so we'll actually do a page by page screen grab for you to be able to walk you through the entire process. We'll then, after that, spend the next 15 minutes about how to prepare for stage 2, what to expect, some resources that you get to know from today's webinar vis-a-vis everybody else who may not get a chance to actually take a look at that. So it's a little hidden secret. And we'll spend the last 15 minutes really for a question and answer and some closing remarks. Now, if you've got any questions at any point in the webinar, all you have to do is really just write it down in the chat. I have my colleagues Eugene and Joyce on standby, so they help take the questions and also surface out some questions for our different segments in which we'll try and attempt to address them. Okay, let's start. So just to give you a bit of background so you understand why is the spotlight on HR. Really at the Jubilee year, about 2 to 3 years ago, there was a committee that was convened, also known as the Committee for Future Economies, really looking into how Singapore can remain competitive, economically viable, and sustainable in the years to come. So what happened from this recommendation of Committee for Future Economies was that they identified 23 different sectors to undergo some degree of sector transformation. These sectors include things like, for example, aerospace, logistics, very big names, also in finance. But what was interesting was HR was selected as a sector to also proceed. Now, many of you would know HR is not really a sector per se because we can't say we're a specialization. We're actually more of an industry. So what happened was HR was also then later on selected to go with the HR industry manpower plan instead of a sectoral manpower plan. What was really eye-raising though for a lot of policymakers as well as ministers was that the HR industry was actually the first one to be launched under this entire initiative, also part of the Skills Future movement. So there were a lot of eyebrows raised because people were asking things like, why? HR sector isn't as big, it doesn't rake in big GDP numbers, so why is it that the spotlight is on HR? Well, there's two reasons really why the spotlight was on HR and it was the first to move. First of all, if let's say we were to talk about a transformation for all the different sectors, for example, in aerospace, who will be the ones who actually goes down to do their learning needs analysis? Who helps them with their job redesign? Who looks at like the potential of automation and then looking at how work can be centered around it for the people that's working within the organization? So with that, really HR is the one that champions that. It's a very key reason on why HR needs to undergo the transformation ourselves so that we'll be able to guide everybody else through that sector transformation. So first of all, we are important because we actually help manage later on the sector transformation plans. The second one, and really more succinctly, it's around being a change agent. So for example, when we talk about like all these changes that need to happen at the workplace, there'll be more emotions that we need to deal with. People are anxious about what their job is going to entail in the near future. So HR really plays that role as a change agent to ensure that we champion change, we manage all that anxiety, we know what are the next steps to take. So really, those are the two reasons why HR professionals are now all of a sudden thrown into the spotlight. And it's something that we need to grapple and really learn how to manage going forward. As part of that, really, the HR Industry Manpower Plan was launched on the 10th of July. And if you can see on your screens in that green little triangle up there, the main objective is looking at people as human capital. So looking at our workforce is more than just human resources, something that we see as transactional, but something that is strategic and we put investment in. Other things are also looking at HR as a strategic business partner. So no longer are we just going to talk about the CEO, the CFO when we think about overseas operations, but more and more so, the importance is also on the people agenda being placed at that C-suite table. The third one is really more for people like you and me to ensure that HR remains as a valued profession and an opportunity for good jobs. Now, if you're interested to learn about the Community for Future Economies recommendations, more about sectoral manpower plan, HR industry manpower plan, you could always visit the MOM website, which direct you in all the right directions. But for this, let's zoom into what are some of the initiatives that we're targeting at the HR professionals. So what happened was IHRP was set up for that singular purpose. We're set up really to equip HR professionals on how to really be ready and future ready for the economy to come. So IHRP was launched together with the HR Industry Manpower Plan on the 10th of July. We are set up by our tripartite partners, which includes NTUC, MOM, as well as SNEF. And really, the way we see the future is that we want to build a world-class HR community where we effect purposeful change for both people as well as organizations. Now, it's the reason why we target these two segments is really while we have a lot of the initiatives targeted as a HR professional themselves, for it to be sustainable and for it to really have an impact going forward, we also need to allow the organizations and the workforce to see the value of what we do. So the means in which we do that is that we want to be an international recognized authority of HR, we define the standards of excellence, and we lead the adoption of progressive human capital practices. Now, you may be following some of the things that we do within the Institute, and we're very proud to share with you that in November last year, we truly can call ourselves internationally recognized. We had a partnership event together with the CIPD, the Chartered Institute for Professional Development, in November, and that allows you to have a mutual recognition arrangements. So if you're pursuing the IHRP certification today, going forward, especially if you're performing in a regional role or looking to really further yourself at an international level, you can then do a crossover to CIPD. Now, I'll share with you more details of that in my slides to come. But really, at the Institute, there are three key things that we do. So number one, we are a vehicle to drive certification and credentials. Number two, we are a platform to drive some of the best practices and also disseminate that with you. The third one is that we're the home for the certified HR professionals. So you know how as HR, we've always talked about all the learning needs, all the developmental journeys for everybody within the workforce. But nobody ever truly looks at the learning needs and be the learning partner of the HR professional. Now, this is where the Institute comes in, and we hope to be able to be that support arm for you. So with that, this is my favorite slide actually because it highlights the entire value proposition on the page. Now, talking to you directly because you're a HR practitioner, when you're stepping forward for the certification, what you're saying to the market is that you are committed to enriching your HR developmental journey. In detail, that means it accords you with the industry endorsed mark of your HR competency. If we draw a parallel, it's almost like you pursuing ISO certification, but it's in HR and it's for you as an individual. So it's that sort of caliber and that benchmark and that recognition that we're looking at. It also signals that you are current because really a lot of the body of competencies and it's what it stands for, it's all about being future ready, and it demonstrates a commitment to career long learning. Now, for you, especially as a HR leader, you might be looking at this also for the rest of your team. So, as an employer, when you're sending your staff for certification, what you're saying and signaling up to the market as well is that you're equipping your business with progressive people practices. A means of it is really by level setting the HR capabilities and consistency within your team. A real detailed example on how that is done is that just by sitting for the assessment alone, your teammates are actually exposed to the sort of situations that real life HR professionals are facing today. this sort of situations may or may not be within their job scope and their job exposure to receive. As such, they'll be exposed to it. They'll know some of the best practices for it, and they'll be able to deal with it in the event that they are faced with it in a real life case. So that's what we mean by really level setting the capabilities. So just even sitting for the assessment is great exposure. Apart from that, as a leader or as an employer, what you're doing by sending your staff for certification is you're really enabling access to some of the best practices and insights, especially with some of the research pieces, some of the thought leadership and toolkit pieces that we're working out with CIPD and some of our partners as well. And overall, as I mentioned, this whole thing leads up to the Committee for Future Economies and the Sectoral Manpower Plan, the Skills Future Movement, so it unlocks that workforce productivity and growth for your organization. So we'll move and dive into what the certification process looks like. Really in detail, it aims to create you into a 3x3 HR professional. When I say 3x3, what we mean by that is that there are three areas of competencies that you'll be assessed upon. There are also three levels of certification to suit your role. And the last one is that there are three stages in the developmental journey. Now, I'll zoom in into the three areas to be assessed. Now, the image down there might be a bit small, so let me pull you to our website. So you may or may not be aware that we have this thing called the body of competencies. So you look under our website, you go under certification, you look under IHRP certification framework as you see over here. Click on it and you'll see a very interactive plan of our body of competencies where we highlight to you what are the foundational competencies, the functional competencies, as well as around the mindsets and behavior in detail if you're interested, and I strongly advocate for you to actually take a look into this. There is a detailed version of it that highlights what we mean by all this body of competencies. Practical use for it so far, based on some of the feedback that people have shared with me, is if you're looking at your performance appraisal, there's some great ways in which you can pick up some of the keywords to include it in yours. But really, for the purpose of certification, what I find a really good feature of it is that it highlights to you the distinction, for example, over here between certification and certification framework. So for example, certification framework
Like this.
No, not on. I can't see the mic. Can you see my chat? Huh? You can hear me?
Like this. Like this.
Everyone can hear me? Audio restored? Everyone can hear me? Okay, perfect. I am so sorry for that. We have no idea what actually happened, but let us check into that later on. So, I hope everybody's back online with me. My sincere apologies. So, as I was sharing with you, we were talking about the body of competencies. So, the beauty about this tool that I really like is that you can actually identify the difference between someone performing at a certified professional level and someone performing at a senior professional level. So the good thing about it is that you know upfront what exactly are we assessing in terms of the assessment in paper A, paper B for the certification, and it's all over here for the body of competencies. Now I'll leave you to download that and look at it within your own time. But I draw you again, so you go to the website, go under certification. There's the first tab that says certification framework. Download that, digest it, and we'll be able to actually really guide you along, especially during the competency demonstration in stage one. Now we move on. The second one is around three levels of certification and also deep dive into the three stages in the developmental journey in my next few slides. So if we look at this, which is essentially the tiering of the certification, someone who is performing at the role at the very pinnacle, which we were talking about master professional level, are individuals who tend to be thought leaders in the HR community. Also, they all are like the CHRO of large organizations. So for this tier, as of now, we are actually opening it only through nominations. So nominated through our tripartite partners, MOM, SNEF, as well as NTUC. But good thing for you is that if you're applying for certification, there are two tiers that you can go in for. On the left hand side, you see in blue is certified professional level. This means that you are a HR manager, you're a specialist, or a business partner. And really, by stepping forward for certification, what you're signaling to the market is you want to gain recognition for the proficiency. As you see over there, Kyril from AXS was actually he actually stepped forward for the certification, and this is what he had to say about it. This is someone who is a senior professional level. When you're stepping forward for certification, you tend to be in the role of a senior and experienced HR leader, and really, what you're trying to do is to ensure that you are representing the organization in a professional manner. So this is what you're trying to do. Wi-Fi. Eh? Pardon me, I think sorry everyone. My sincere apologies. So just to share with you guys, we've actually just moved into our new office. So we're no longer at MOM. We actually just moved into Lifelong Learning Institute. So it's about maybe a week now, and things are still being patched up and so my, my team are giving me very interesting signals. More stable than mine. Is this connection restored? Okay, guys, I will try as much as possible to walk the entire site. Again, our apologies. We will send the deck across. If you've got any questions, really do feel free to approach any one of us. I'll leave you my email address later on, and we'll take your questions also in case the whole presentation from here on is a bit more sketchy. Okay, but I'll move on and just share and cross my fingers that the Wi-Fi isn't lazy today. So we're talking about the HR professional side. You tend to be a seasoned and experienced leader. You're really augmenting your reputations. And ISIM had something to say about it. Now, the distinction between both is that you sit for paper B or paper C. But everybody, whether or not you're a certified professional or senior professional, you have to sit for paper A. I'll walk you in detail what that means later on in my slides when we're talking about the on-site assessment. Okay. Just to share, there have been over 1,000 professionals who've actually started their certification journey, and over 300 of them have actually already been certified. So this is the overview of the entire certification journey, and for today we'll be focusing on stage one, which is the online submission. So let's go direct into a page by page view of this. So when you go on our website and you key in your name, you key in your email, and you set up an account, you'll be brought to this page. So it will prompt you over here to create an account, as you see. You then have to fill out all the details and click those two buttons so that we are in line with PDPA to contact you. And then it'll ask you for all these items. So let's take a deeper look into it. What you'll be asked to offer is your personal information, employment information, work experience, education, supporting docs declaration, as well as after you've completed the payment stage, you then also to be asked you'll be asked to showcase your competency demonstration. So let's look. Under certification level, you choose whether you're certified professional or senior professional. Now, for those two, in terms of which level is right for you, we've walked through that during our slide. So let's say for me today, I'll be choosing as a certified professional. So I'll click on this button and I'll move on to the next page. The best part about it is that because we know later on you'll be asked to offer a reference testimonial, we've made your life simpler by having a e-triggered system for you. All you have to do is you could fill out your referee email over here, highlight all the, and you can edit if you like to, and you can send the request out to them. So this actually gives them some justification about why you're doing the certification, what's it all about. If they've got any questions, they can also like reach out to us. But if you'd like to take this offline, there is a button over here that you can download the form as well and send them via e-copy, have a discussion with them as well to let them know your intentions. So this is something that we brought up front to make sure that your life filling up the application will be a lot easier. Okay. So over here, it'll tell you just to make sure that you are the right candidate that we're looking into. We've also ensured that we want to collect your data and keep it as as accurate as possible. So we'll be sending you a one-time password, key in all the details over there, and then you'll proceed. So this is the application form proper. You fill in all your personal agendas, personal information. So I won't go into that. The next slide is really about your employee information. So this is really quite self-explanatory. One thing that you may have a bit of questions on is about industry categories. So if you've got any questions, you can refer to the SSIC coding based on the industry that you're at. So ask you, oh, how long were you in your position? Who reports to you? Are you in a global position? This is really just so that we can get a sense of you and your profile as a HR professional. It then moves on to your HR work experience. So ask you for the company name, the positions, the start date and end dates as well. So fill that up to the best of your capabilities. Later on, you'll also be asked to share with us your CV as well. So you'll cross-relate that. The next slide is around HR related education and training. Now, as you know, or you may not know, there is an eligibility criteria for individuals pursuing the certification. So, first of all, you need to be at least 2 years at the appropriate level of certification you're pursuing. So, for example, if you're pursuing certified professional, it means 2 years as a HR manager, 2 years as a business partner, or 2 years as a specialist. So, in this, you have to fill. That's one criteria. Second criteria is a accordance to our code of professional conduct, and the third one is around HR related education and training. So you need to demonstrate to us 150 hours, which is why this criteria is here. Now, many questions about, first of all, why do we need to demonstrate education? Two, why 150 hours? So I'll start with the first one on why do you need to showcase education. Someone in CIPD dropped me a very good example for this, and they said like, oh, imagine Nicole, today you went out to play tennis and you injured your shoulder. So you like to go to a TCM, a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, to ask him to do some massage and some releasing of the tension for you in your shoulder. But imagine when you go up to him, you go like, "Hi, uncle. Have you seen people with the same issues before?" And he says, "Yes." And have you seen people with the same? Have you been working in this industry for very long? And he tells you yes. And later on, you said, "Okay, but uncle, have you gone to school before?" And he says, like, "Oh, no, TCM school is not important. But don't worry, I'll just be poking 2 needles in your shoulders. It's not that big of a deal." And I'm wondering about you, but for me, I would be very anxious on whether or not I really want to proceed with this doctor, because I won't have that full confidence that he really knows the science behind what he's doing. So in that same vein, the reason why we're asking for this is so we recognize that HR professionals possess that wealth of expertise, but we also want to make sure that you're grounded in certain logic and flows and frameworks that's grounding your practice. So this is the reason why we have that HR education. And when we say 150 hours, what we're asking for is, do you have 19 days, around 19 days of training within your entire career? Now, this doesn't have to be academic. It can be things like, for example, your training courses, your workshops, your seminars, internal programs. As long as you prove to us that you have gone through the HR education with formalized learning objectives, is something we're looking into. Okay, so with that, you can actually click on the category on how you're going to demonstrate that. And in the event, let's say you really don't have 150 hours, you can click on that button over there and really just take note that the submissions with less than 150 hours will be considered on a case by case basis. Okay, so then we're moving on. Fill out all the details that you need to fill up for your HR related education or all the training programs that you've undergone. And we'll come on to the next one. This is around supporting documents. So when we look at this NRIC, please note that you need a copy of the front and the back of the NRIC. Upload your CV as well in Word or PDF format, and then the reference testimonials. When it comes back to you, you can just include it in here as well. In the event you need a little bit more time, please don't let this be a roadblock for you. You can actually just put through your entire application and just email us later on to the experience assessment at ihrp.sg email website with 2 weeks post submission. Okay. If you have more testimonials, feel free to include that over here as well. And you will come to the assessment dates. So the assessment date details can actually be found on our website. I'll just quickly show you to it. Over here under certification here, this button, and then you see assessment dates. So you'll be able to see all the dates that are upcoming for CP as well as SP. So just select one of them within this category over here, and you can move on. It will then prompt you to take a look at your full entire application to ensure that all the details included have been accurate, and then you can click next. And it would say, yes, I declare that everything is correct, and you click submit. What happens after that is that it will bring you to the payment page. So you proceed on with the payment, and after the payment, you straight away will be prompted with the competency demonstration. Now, this is the part that we know a lot of individuals really struggle with. And one tip I have for you is really look at the body of competencies. The resource that I shared with you just now, this Word document that you see over here, it actually already articulates all the different performance statements that you're expected to perform at. So we use this as a bench to really trigger you to think about what does your experience relate to the competency that we're asking for. So one way in which you can share an example of your experience is using what we call the STAR technique. So you see over here. So STAR really refers to S for situation, T for stakeholders, A for actions, and R for results. So I'll repeat myself. STAR, S for situations, T for stakeholders, A for actions, and R for results. STAR technique means that you'll be able to set out the situation on how, for example, demonstrated plan, stakeholders that were involved in your planning, for example, the line managers, for example, the candidates, the actions that you take in talent acquisition, and also the outcomes that you, or the results that you achieve. For example, you successfully place people. Typically, your service timeline is about less than 2 weeks, for example. Okay, so this is a means in which you can demonstrate your competencies. There are different categories and also some examples that you can see over here. There are different categories that we are expecting you to fill up. So there is one for the functional competencies that you see over here: plan, attract, develop, engage, and separate. There's also other things such as the foundational competencies and mindsets and behavior. Now, many individuals have asked me this question. Nicole, you mentioned that I need to fill out all these competencies, but what happens if I'm a specialist and I really just don't have that experience in that particular field? For example, I'm an L&D specialist, and I do have areas in plan, I do have areas in develop and engage, but talent acquisition and also separation is not really my forte. How do I then fill up those experiences? Well, I'd like to share with you with this. If you have prior experience in that, that's great. Do fill it up based on your prior experience. It doesn't have to be just within your current job scope. But if you truly don't have anything related to it, you can just indicate not applicable in this phase because you don't have it. But so with that, it means specialists who are stepping forward for certification, you're not ruled out for this certification. But what happens is, for the actual assessment that you're sitting for, because we are looking to develop people holistically, some of the questions within the actual, like paper A, paper B's, and paper C's, will be asking you around what you would do holistically as a HR professional. So before sitting for your certification, our recommendation to you is to read up, have a chat with some of your colleagues as well, so you can get a full spectrum of what to do in HR. Now I know that doesn't give fully 100% assurance that a specialist will be able to make it clear, but for individuals who are really truly specialized because of the way the job is sliced within your organization, we would like to share that actually coming up next year, we will be launching some specialist tracks on the more popular ones, potentially around talent acquisition as well as L&D. So if you feel you're not that comfortable to sit for certification because it looks holistically and you like to wait for that, that's something that you can keep your eyes peeled for as well on our website. Okay, I hope that's elevated some fears. So apart from the functional competencies, there's also the foundational, where we're looking at analytics, relationship and comms, technology, as well as labor policies and legislations. So some of the write-ups are over here, but again, I refer you back. Really, this would be a great resource where you can actually see what it entails, what are we talking about. So so you'll be able to fill up or get some trigger words and some ideas on how to actually articulate your experiences. Okay, so I'll move on. The last one is really around the mindsets and behaviors. Again, the same thing. And then you ask to declare, yes, I'm declared that this is accurate, and then you can click submit. And really, voila, that's the end of the online submission. That's all that we've covered. So okay, so just a quick tip on how to prepare for stage one is, first of all, really get your reference testimonies prepared. As I mentioned, on stage two, once you actually started the process, you straight away will be prompted on whether or not you'd like to send an auto triggered email there. The second one is, please scan all your supporting documents for your HR related education. So for example, you can scan some of your learning, your own in-house reports, or scan for example, your tertiary and academic qualifications. And the third one, really, my tip for you is refer to the body of competencies to articulate your experience in relations to the demonstration. So, just a quick tip that these are some things you could note. In the event you are unable to complete everything before the cutoff date, what you can do, and really please don't let this be a showstopper, is please email us and we would see it on a case by case basis on how we can accommodate your timeline. Okay, so I would stop there because I've covered everything around stage one, and I'll leave the floor open for maybe about 2 minutes for any questions. How many reference letters are required is the very first question. Two reference letters are required. So, what? New one? Oh, pardon me, I was wrong. Oh, I've always heard it was two. So reference testimonials, one minimum. Okay, optional. You want to provide me two, provide me three. We'll be happy to take a look at them. So one of it is required. Now, questions related to that also is that for the reference testimonial, does it have to be your current immediate supervisor? The answer is no. It can be a past supervisor. It also can be a peer who is working alongside you, as long as they are able to attest for the sort of competencies and the experiences that you have. They will be a good person to actually offer your reference testimonials. Okay. Okay. So the question was asked: does it have to be immediate? I've addressed that. Any other questions? When is the deadline for dispatch of submission? 19 Feb. 19 Feb. So if you look back at our assessment dates, you can see over here it says 19 Feb for the dates of April, May, and June. Now that's it. Okay, if you're going, just a quick tip for all of you because you're joining me on my webinar. If you're going for the May or June intakes, with a deadline that's slightly later, if you'd like to put in your application, because you really just can't meet the 19 Feb deadline because it's Chinese New Year. Nobody really wants to work on Chinese New Year. People like me definitely don't. So you can actually write into us and we'll look at it on a case by case basis to maybe offer you a bit more extension, especially if you're going for the May or June intakes. So I hope that clarifies. Any more questions? Okay, without any questions, let's move on to stage two. Really, please feel free to continue with your questions if you've got any. Write in the chat and we'll take it at the Q&A segment later on. So when we talk about stage two, it means that what happens is after you've completed stage one, my team will be reviewing it, screening it, and within 1 month before your actual assessment date, they will inform you whether or not you're eligible to sit as a candidate. So if you're sitting for candidacy, going as a certified professional, you'll be sitting for paper A and paper B. For a senior professional, you'll be sitting for paper A and paper C. Now, first questions first. What is in paper A and what is in paper B? So if we look under how to prepare tab, you would see competency assessment topics and format. Okay. So you look at it and you'll be able to, in detail, look at what's the coverage for paper A, what is the coverage for paper B and paper C. Now, in a nutshell, okay, paper A is 19 minutes, completely MCQ. It looks around labor policies and legislations, so like Employment Act, Foreign Manpower Act, so on and so forth. First question that comes to everybody's mind is, Nicole, you're not expecting me to really remember all of that, are you? So we like to highlight, no. As for the entire assessment, everything is really about application focus. So for the questions in paper A, if they're asking you around Employment Act related matters, so what happens is the question will pop up. You'll be offered live links to MOM, CPS, statutes, so on and so forth. And it's almost simulating the way you will work at work, the way you operate at work. And then you'll be prompted to select a response. So just to clarify, paper A, completely open book. Okay, for paper B, it's for the certified professional level, so it covers everything around the functional and foundational competencies, also around the mindsets and behavior, and so it's again in MCQ format. So this is for 2 hours. So someone going for paper C, now this is 3 hours around mindsets and behaviors, typically done by the senior professional, and it's short answer format. Okay, so let's look back. Yeah, so that's one resource. What happens also is that after you're done with your assessments, you'll be notified of your results together with a report that you see up here, some of the images. So what happens during the assessment is that every single question is actually linked back to a competency in the body of competencies. So we'll be able to articulate to you which are your strongest suits and where are some areas for development, and you'll be able to take that as part of your learning recommendations. So with that report, you'll also be notified on whether or not you cleared. And with that, if you've cleared, we'll be sharing with you more details about, for example, the conferment ceremony, as well as details on how to use the credentials, which is IHRP CP and SP or MP on your LinkedIn, on your CVs, on your references, and so on and so forth. So that's really about professional recognition of the entire HR industry. Okay, how to prepare for stage two? So first of all, I talked about knowing what is being tested. I'll show that to you already. The second thing that you can do apart from familiarizing yourself is really reflecting on your own HR experiences. So what you can do, and this is an issue or a concern that we've seen for a number of HR professionals, is that because a lot of the times we're very operational, we look into things and we really don't we just want to dive into it, and we want to make sure that we try as much as possible to manage and keep all our stakeholders happy. We don't really do a lot of documentations or a lot of self-reflections of the things that we've done. So with HR professionals, this is a perfect opportunity to reflect on what you've completed, what you've seen as an achievement, and what are some of the practices and really some of the best practices within the market that you can look up to. So what you can do is, if you like to reinforce some of your experiences, there are some learning resources that we find very useful and we recommend, such as the Practical Guide to Employment Act for Good Practices. There's TAFAP, which has a whole bunch of resources on their website. There's also MOM, which has a lot of quick tips and guides on how to for example, do good recruitment. The third thing you can do to prepare for your stage two is really go out and talk to your HR colleagues. So there's no better way to learn than actually really having someone else share it with you, or you sharing it with someone else, because not only is it a very social way of getting to do the knowledge transfer, it also allows you to get a real sense of what are some of the challenges that they face, some of the business situations that they're placed in. So you could do that by just talking to your immediate colleagues, especially if you're a specialist and you want to gain the experience and that breadth of knowledge in a field that you're not really that familiar with. Or the alternative is you can form a discussion group to discuss some of the scenarios and share some of the knowledges and experiences that you possess. Now, for this discussion group, what I strongly encourage you to do is that you can join our LinkedIn group. We do have a LinkedIn group online. You join them and you can actually find some of the communities that have been set up for individuals, like-minded individuals who are also pursuing certification. So you guys can find a time, do it online, do it offline, but really talk through some of the scenarios that you might be faced, or that you like to share your experiences in. So also to highlight, when you are sitting for candidacy, the team will actually be sending you an information pack with all the logistic details, a sample version of what the online assessment interface in, so you can familiarize yourself, and also some of the best resources that you can actually look into. Now, for you, I'd like to share something which is actually something you might want to consider preparing before you sit for the assessment, which is all these little tabs you see over here about sample questions. So you can actually click on one of them, like for example, this one is around paper A, and you'll be brought to one of the sample questions that we have. So you can use it a bit like a prelim, like a sensing of whether or not it's something that you're familiar or you need to gain more experience in. So you can actually fill that up at your own time. Then you can actually check your answers as well. Now, this is the part that most people do not know. They see all these questions, but they've never ever clicked on this button here. Now, be the curious person. Click on the button, and you will see there's a plethora more questions that you can actually fill up. Unfortunately, I've been very curious. So, paper A, I've actually clicked on it, but you can actually see for paper B, paper C, there are some questions that you can attempt. So, for example, I'll click over here. So I can actually attempt paper B, which shows me a live link on SurveyMonkey or some of the questions that I can attempt while it comes up. So over here, for example, a case will be demonstrated, and then the case is all these sort of parameters and some questions that will be raised as such. So as you can see, typically per case, 4 to 6 questions will be linked back to that case. Okay, so this is something that I realize on a personal level that HR professionals pursuing certifications may not be aware of. And it's something that I'd like to share with you since you're a part of our webinar session. Okay, so please look at that at your own time. Yeah, so that's for stage 2. Uh, okay, let me pull back my screen. And okay. I know that I'm in the last 15-minute stretch of my certification of my session. So I'll be showing you some last minute things that you should know before I open up the floor for Q&A. So there are fees involved in the entire certification process. These are actual true fees. But the beauty about it for Singaporeans and Singapore citizens is I emphasize that this ultimately looks into the Committee for Future Economy's recommendation, is that the fees have been highly subsidized. So if you're pursuing CP, it means $150 for a 3-year validity. SP is $240. Now, one question people might ask is, after I am certified, I sit for paper A, paper B, I'm credentialed, what do I have to do in the recertification process? So recertification process only kicks in 3 years later. Instead of sitting through all the assessments again, you just need to demonstrate your CPD, the continuous professional development hours. 90 hours will be required for you to demonstrate. 60 hours need to be structured learning, so it could be in forms of webinars, seminars, workshops, in-house, external, or it could, and it could also include informal means such as reading about the HR community. For example, Dave RH latest book about his new HR framework, or it could be things like blogging about the HR community, talking about the HR community at certain events and forums will also be included. Now, to support you on that, my team is also developing learning journeys, also developing some of the programs that we run in-house that will all attribute your CPD hours. So that's something that you can look forward to just by joining this community. So just to showcase to you, these are some of the upcoming dates for CPs in April, May, and June. As I mentioned again, the 19th Feb is the cutoff date, but if you really do urgently need more time, please feel free to let us know and we'll do our best to accommodate your needs. Okay, so I would start first with some questions. Common ones are around the eligibility. As I mentioned just now, it's 2 years of work experience at appropriate level, code of professional conduct compliance, and 150 hours of education. Now, these are the things that I talked you through just now during my presentations. So I'll just put that out on the slide. With that, I have, let's see, I have 45. I'm at 45, so I've got 15 more minutes on the clock. Do we have any questions that we can start taking? Sure. First one. Okay, very good. I'll bring you back to this slide where I talk about the certification journey. In detail, total 4 months. In reality, commitment 4 hours. About 4 to 5. Okay, I say half a day. So when we talk about stage 1, you can do that in your own time, own target. Typically, when you have to commit for stage 1, the actual time to complete is actually 1 hour. But I know that this is a self-reflection exercise, so it might take an individual roughly about maybe 4 man-hours to complete for stage 1. So there's no commitment physically to come down to a session for it. For stage 2 is where the 4 hours commitment is, because you have to sit for paper A and paper B. From stage 1 to stage 2, it takes you roughly about, depending on your assessment date, you see, it'll take you about 1 to 2 months to sit for the assessment. After stage 2, within 1 month, you know your results, and then you clear to stage 3. So which means the shortest you can squeeze everything to is 3 months in terms of the wait out line, but the longest maybe about 5 months if you select a later assessment date. Okay, I hope that clarifies. Sure. Okay. Okay, so the second question I've got is something that's very personal. So the individual highlighted that he's on a break, and they're looking to come back into the certification, into the industry, and is certification eligible for them? So I'll highlight on this. So this is about the eligibility criteria. It means he needs to be at least 2 years of HR work experience in role. So my immediate sense to you really is please put it up on a case on case basis. If you have a wealth of experience, which means you really have been in this industry for very long, and it's just really a very short break, you're already actively to come back into the certification. Ultimately, this whole certification is targeted for someone like you because you're a professional. So we wouldn't say no, although we do have this eligibility criteria. So maybe you like to service out the case and I can channel it to the right person to take a look to see whether or not we can accord you with clearance to sit for the paper. Okay, I hope that gives some assurance. What is the passing mark? I love this question. This is something I always get, especially by Singaporeans. This is really spot on. So, okay, we look over here. There's paper A and paper B for CP and SP. Now, we don't have a black and white passing mark because it's not an examination per se. But because the way we do the assessment and the marking is through a norming, so which means you'll be matched up against the back data, the back end data that we have, as well as against your peers in your current batch. Roughly, I can say the passing mark is about 60%, about there. Okay, so 60% of all the questions that you see, but that's it. Really, again, everything is in relative, so it'll be based on your results vis-a-vis someone else's one. Next question. If we pass, if you pass the CP, can you go straight to? Pardon, sorry, I don't understand the question. Okay. So let's say you've already cleared CP. Can you take SP? Okay. That one's how do I put this? You need 2 years of working experience at the appropriate level. So you can do that only if you fulfill the criteria as a seasoned HR leader. What I mean by it is that if you are a seasoned HR leader, but you're a little bit more modest, you don't really want to pursue SP at the onset because you feel like you don't really need the eligibility for it. So you take the more humble approach and you go on the CP, so you clear it. But subsequently, because you are performing at that higher tier, you can sit for paper C. So all you have to do is just top up. However, if you're a HR manager, HR specialist, a HR BP, and once you clear CP, you like to sit for SP, we won't be able to proceed because the eligibility criteria is different. You need 2 years working experience at that level of SP. So which means you need 2 years as a HR leader before you can actually sit for the certification. Okay, so I hope that explains it. Okay, I can take the next question. No more questions? Okay. So I'll just like to check whether anyone has any more questions. You can ask me anything about stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 also. We can share that with you. Yeah. Okay, there's a question. If the outcome for experience assessment is unsuccessful, will the outcome be explained? Actually, yes. So what happens is that when you are filling up the details for the experience assessment, if there are any clarifications within my team when they are screening you, they will actually call you up individually to ask you, can I get a little bit more material? Can I clarify what you mean by this? So they give you an opportunity to explain your case, right? And let's say at the end of it, at stage 1, you didn't clear. They will actually issue you a notification on why you didn't clear. So you could always sought for more clarity. You could ask some questions, and they'll also offer some recommendations on how you can bridge up the gap in the event you didn't clear. So yeah, rest assured, we do all we can at the institute to really try our best to elevate the HR professionals. So don't see us as the gatekeeper. We're really more trying to guide you along to facilitate the entire HR and uplifting the sector as a whole. Oh, is there a time limit for the online submission? I hope we got that question right. No, there's no time limit. So we're not we're not limiting you to, for example, you must complete it within 2 days or one 8 hour sitting. You can actually save it, come back to it anytime you like. So what I've seen some individuals have done is that they, because it's mobile friendly as well, they go on mobile and then they type their competencies in halfway. They go like, oh wait, my bus is here, I need to run for my bus. So they run for their bus and then they get onto the bus and they can continue. So you can do that as well. So yeah, just really remember to save it. Actually, we do have an autosave function because we're concerned on that as well. But yeah, as much as possible, just keep save button just in case. Is the location for the on-site assessment as LI? Okay, this is a good question. We are not sure. Currently, our on-site assessments are all done at Singapore Poly. Now, this is really a walking distance away from Dover MRT. Whether or not we want to host it later on at Lifelong Learning Institute is something that we're still deciding. The reason why we have it at Singapore Poly is because they are one of our key partners, and also Singapore Poly is the head for the HR sectorial coordinating body for the Institute for Higher Learnings. So subsequently, we may or may not, but don't worry, especially for your own individual assessment, the details will be sent to you when together with the information package when you're sitting for candidacy. I know sometimes coming to lifelong learning is quite a journey. Don't worry, I know that. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, so I've got a question, a personal one again. So I have an experience in a separate field. I have taken a business degree, and of that business degree, while it was generalist, there is a specialization or certain modules in HR. Can I use that criteria as part of the 150 hours? My answer to you is yes. So what you should do when you're articulating your 150 hours for the experience, the education and training, is that you scan your main degree, and then after you scan the transcript, highlighting to us which one the HR related modules, and in the transcript it will indicate the number of credits. Now for you, just as a rule of thumb, is that each credit roughly equates to 10 hours. So for example, within your degree, your transcript says that you've gotten 6 credits for it. It means roughly about six. It translates to roughly 60 hours of the education that is relevant to this certification. Okay, I hope that addresses. I missed the first part of this webinar. Would there be another session? Why did you? Am I not engaging enough? No, I'm just kidding. We will currently, actually, for this round, we're not have this is the last webinar session we're hosting. However, what I can do for you is I'll be sending you a recorded copy of this webinar. I'll also share with you across the deck. And if you've got any more questions, I strongly urge you to come and date me on 14th of Feb. We are running a clinic session over here at lunchtime. So you can actually pop into LI, you can bring your materials along, and we'll do a streamlined version of this entire webinar in person. Yeah, so I welcome you to come say hi. When is the next time besides 19th February? So 19th February is actually the cutoff date for Q2 dates. There's dates for Q3, Q4, and the rest of the following few years. So the cutoff dates for those few runs will actually be slowly released on our website. So just refer back to the assessment date component under our website to get the most updated cutoff date. Again, I repeat, if you're going for the May or June dates, which are a little bit later, I strongly encourage you to write into us to see whether or not we can offer you a little bit more extension so that you still be able to pursue those few dates. Okay? Yes, and do note, 19th Feb doesn't mean that it's for the on-site assessment. 19th Feb is the cutoff date for the online submission. So my recommendation to you, go in, submit everything you can for the online submission to the best of your ability. And if you need to supplement it, for example, your referee testimonial isn't in, you want to supplement it later, you can actually do that. It's not an issue with us. So just make sure you've cleared until the payment gateway. And that's the most critical by 19th Feb. So I note I have about another 3 more minutes on the clock. Uh, actually, maybe with that, if I have no more questions, I would really like to say thank you for your time today with me. It's a whole hour. I'm so sorry for having to eat into your lunchtime. I hope you get something to eat as well. But I really appreciate you taking the time and the commitment to know more about the certification journey. And also, I really hope to see your applications come in shortly. So my name is Nicole. My team here today is Eugene as well as Joyce, and we really just want to say a very big thank you. Now, for those of you who still have some questions but you're a bit shy to put it into the chat, we'll still be online. So as people stream out, you can feel free to ask those questions, and we'll take it for maybe another 5 to 10 minutes after 1 o'clock. But if not, I thank everybody for your time, and that's the end of today's webinar. Oh, thank you very much. Such a compliment. So again, as I mentioned, we asked you online. If you'd like to ask us some questions, please feel free to write it in the chat box. Pardon? Will it be possible to come meet us directly for further questions? Of course. So my team will be sending across the link on how you can find us at our clinic session. Our next one is actually on 14th of Feb, so it's a lovely Valentine's date with us as you pursue certification for your own development. So you feel free to join us during lunch at the clinic. But if you'd like to, I don't know, get to know us better, we're actually at Lifelong Learning on the 5th floor. So you're more than welcome to come take a look. After all, this is a home for HR community. So I see some individuals still online. I'd just like to highlight we've actually come to the end of the webinar. If you've got questions, feel free to ask them. If not, I really appreciate your time with me today. Yep. Sure. So again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got any more questions, please really feel free to put it in the chat. We'll be here for maybe another 2 to 3 more minutes. Oh, can I get a recording of this whilst driving? Yes, of course. As I mentioned, we will be sending a recording of today's session. Apart from that, also we send across the deck. It will send you more information, like for example, the upcoming clinic sessions that we're having on the 14th of Feb to help guide you along. Drive safe, please. Okay, so with that, we've seen quite a number of people exiting. Yeah, really appreciate your time. So my name is Nicole. As I mentioned, we'll follow up with a follow-up email. We'll stop today's session here, and once again, hope you have a really good weekend.